The audience inside the Graham Norton Show studio was already buzzing long before the cameras began to roll. It was one of those electric Friday nights in London where everything seemed a little louder, a little more alive, and tonight's lineup promised something special. Among the celebrity guests, actors, comedians, and a British pop singer, sat the evening's headline guest, the global icon herself, Taylor Swift. Her mere presence had turned the taping into a sold-out event, with fans queuing outside for hours just to get a glimpse of her walking in. As the red light above the cameras flicked on, Graham Norton flashed his signature grin, his voice smooth and full of practiced charm. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guests." The audience roared as one after another, the stars entered to the lively strains of the show's theme. Finally, the crowd nearly shook the walls when he called out, "The one and only Taylor Swift!" Taylor stepped onto the set with that effortless grace she'd honed over 2 decades of stardom. Her golden hair shimmered under the bright studio lights, her smile wide but cautious. She wore a black velvet jumpsuit with subtle silver details that glimmered as she walked, each step timed perfectly to the rhythm of the applause. She waved, hugged Graham politely, and took her seat on the iconic red couch. The first few minutes went as expected. Warm, funny, charming. Graham, ever the consummate host, started with light topics. "Now, Taylor, you've been busy. A world tour, re-recording albums, topping charts again and again. When do you sleep?" Taylor laughed softly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm still figuring that out," she said. "My cats are my alarm clocks, so not much rest happening at home." The audience chuckled. Graham nodded approvingly, leaning in just enough to seem engaged, his eyes glinting with curiosity. "And of course, your fans, the Swifties, are as devoted as ever. It must be surreal hearing a stadium full of people singing your lyrics back to you." "It's unbelievable," Taylor replied warmly. "There's no feeling like it. It's like the songs stop belonging to me and start belonging to everyone else." It was a perfect moment, heartfelt, humble, exactly what the producers wanted. The laughter flowed easily, the applause came naturally. But somewhere, as the conversation drifted into her creative process, Graham's playful smirk began to sharpen. He turned one of his blue cue cards over in his hand, his tone still light but carrying an edge. "So, Taylor," he began, "you've built quite the reputation for turning heartbreak into #1 hits." The audience laughed, a little too eagerly. Taylor smiled politely, but her body language shifted. Her shoulders stiffened just slightly, her fingers brushing the hem of her sleeve. "Well," she said, "I write about my life. It's kind of what songwriters do." Of course," Graham said with a laugh. "But surely you must be aware of what people say. You've practically created a genre out of your breakups. Has any ex ever called to thank you for making them famous?" Laughter rippled through the crowd again, but it was uneasy this time. The comedians on the couch exchanged looks. One tried to lighten the moment with a quick joke, but Taylor wasn't laughing. She smiled, barely. "You know, I think if someone's worried about ending up in a song, they probably shouldn't date a songwriter." The audience applauded, sensing the tension building. Graham chuckled, nodding, but he couldn't resist pressing further. "Ah, well, fair enough. But there are those who say you've made a career out of, shall we say, romantic revenge ballads. That's quite the superpower." That last word landed wrong. Taylor's eyes flickered with something cold beneath their blue calm. "I think calling it revenge says more about how people view women expressing emotion than it does about me," she said smoothly. The room went quiet. Graham blinked, not quite ready for the steel in her tone. "Oh, come on," he tried to joke. "It's all in good fun. You must admit, there's a bit of a pattern." She leaned forward slightly, her voice steady but carrying a weight that silenced the laughter that had started to bubble again. "You mean there's a pattern of me turning my experiences into art like every male artist does, and only I get ridiculed for it?" The crowd erupted in applause, louder and longer this time. Taylor sat back, her expression calm but resolute. Graham raised his hands in mock surrender, trying to laugh it off. All right, point taken. But I think people are just fascinated by your honesty. You've managed to take heartbreak and make billions off of it. That's impressive." Taylor didn't smile this time. Her words came slow and deliberate. I don't make music for profit. I make it because it's the only way I know how to process the world. And if the world chooses to make money off that, well, that's not my doing. The tension in the studio was thick now, the kind of quiet that settles over a live audience when they realize they're watching something real. Graham tried to shift the topic, fumbling slightly. Yes, well, speaking of music, your new album. But the moment was gone. The warmth, the laughter, it all felt rehearsed now, forced. Taylor gave brief answers, polite but curt, her gaze fixed somewhere past the cameras. Graham stumbled through the rest of the segment, his usual charm faltering. The other guests smiled awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable being caught in the crossfire. Then came the final question that broke the fragile balance. Graham, in a last-ditch attempt to bring back humor, smirked and asked, "So, tell me honestly, when you write a breakup song, do you ever think, oh, this one's going to ruin someone's week?" Backstage, the world was an entirely different color, quieter, colder, but charged with the same invisible electricity that had hummed through the studio moments before. The applause had barely faded when Taylor Swift stepped behind the curtain, her heels clicking sharply against the concrete floor. The air smelled faintly of coffee and stage makeup. Assistants darted around in controlled chaos, whispering into headsets, trying to look busy while pretending not to stare. Everyone knew what had just happened out there. Taylor's publicist, Megan, appeared from the corridor, tablet in hand and eyes wide. "Taylor, I'm fine," Taylor said immediately, her tone composed but firm. Her posture was straight, deliberate. "I just didn't come here to be the punchline again." Megan hesitated, then nodded, lowering her voice. "You handled it perfectly. It was authentic. Social media's already exploding. You're trending—" Taylor shot her a look that silenced the sentence. "I didn't do it for that," she said softly. Behind them, an intern nearly tripped over a cable as producers rushed by, whispering about damage control. "Do we call PR? Cut the feed before it re-airs?" one muttered. "The BBC's gonna want a statement." Another voice, older, calmer, replied, "Let it run. It's real television. They'll milk it for weeks." Taylor kept walking down the narrow hallway lined with framed photos of past guests, actors, singers, politicians, all smiling under the same red lights. She paused for a moment at one photo. Herself, from years ago, sitting on that same couch, younger, wide-eyed, laughing freely. It felt like a lifetime ago. A deep breath escaped her lips. Funny how that girl thought everyone in this business meant well. Megan gave a sympathetic smile. "You've grown since then. You've learned." "Yeah," Taylor murmured, "but sometimes I wish I hadn't had to." From behind them, a voice called out, "Taylor, wait." It was Graham Norton himself, still in his navy blazer, his tie slightly loosened. His charm had melted into unease. He approached cautiously, his tone apologetic. "Listen, I didn't mean for that to get out of hand." Taylor turned slowly, crossing her arms. Her expression wasn't angry, just tired. "You asked me on your show to talk about music, and you turned it into a joke about my personal life. You do that every time." Graham's practiced smile faltered. "It's just humor, you know? Banter. The audience expects—" "They expect humanity," she interrupted, her voice cutting through the low hum of backstage chatter. "Not humiliation?" The words hung between them. Crew members slowed, pretending to check their equipment, but really listening. Graham sighed. "You know how it is in this industry, Taylor. We tease, we poke, it keeps things lively." She shook her head. "No, it keeps things lazy. You don't need to tear someone down to make an audience laugh." Megan shifted nervously beside her, aware of the small crowd gathering. Camera operators, assistants, sound techs, all pretending to be invisible but clearly caught in the gravity of the moment. Taylor continued, quieter but no less forceful. "You've been doing this for decades, Graham. You've got a platform that could uplift, challenge, inspire, and you use it to recycle tabloid questions. That's not conversation. That's bait." For a long moment he didn't reply. His hands were clasped in front of him, his signature sparkle gone. "You're right," he said finally, voice low. "But in this business, sometimes we forget that the people in the headlines are human too." Studied him, her expression softening just slightly. "Then maybe start remembering. Because I promise you, people are tired of seeing women made into punchlines for living their truth." He nodded, slowly, almost imperceptibly. "You handled yourself with grace," he admitted. "Even when I didn't." Taylor gave a small, polite smile. "Thank you. But maybe next time ask better questions."